Hey guys, in this video we're going to look at making drawings in Creo. So we're going to start with making a drawing of this part here. So we're going to go File, New, Drawing. We're going to name it Tutorial Drawing. We're going to untick Use Default Template and click OK. Now if your config file set up correctly, you may be able to just use default template, but we're going to go empty with format. We're going to click Browse. We're going to go to our working directory. We're going to go up to the top level. Then we're going to go here to Templates, and we're going to select New Racing Format, the detailed one. You should select the one appropriate to your use case. For this tutorial, it's not too important. Now on the other screen, the drawing has just popped up. I'll just see if I can get it on the other screen now. Alright, so we're just on the other screen now, and it's just asking for a few parameters. I can't move it across, so you just have to bear with me a moment. So material, I'm going to put in mild steel. I press enter, then it wants the part number. I'm going to call it A301234. Part title, I'm going to call it tutorial. Alright, and once you've done that, all that did was filled in some of this information here, right? So this is the general drawing view. It can be confusing and difficult at times. To edit any of these boxes down here, any of these fields, you've actually got to go to the table tab in the ribbon here. And now you could see I could change the part number, right? Some of these might not be able to be edited based on the format that we're using. But in general, we use the layout tab here to select the models we want to view, import the models, and import the views and adjust the views. And then we use the annotate tab here to put in dimensions, put notes, whether they're balloon notes down here, or surface notes with unattached note, or a note with a leader. This is how you would put in your weld symbols. We're not going to cover that in this video. But that's all through the Annotate tab. You can use the Sketch tab for, I guess, more advanced applications. Maybe you want to outline a curve or something that wasn't on your model, things like that. Well, we're just going to cover Layout and Annotate for general models. So first of all, we're going to click Drawing Models here. That's going to open up this menu, and we're going to click Add a Model. And we're going to select going to close this, and I'm just going to find out what this part was called. So this was cross brace beam 5. All right. So drawing models, add a model. We want cross brace beam 5. I'm going to click open, and it defaults when you import a new model. It defaults for that to be the current set model. But if we wanted to change it, as we'll show later, we would click set model. So we're going to set it to that, done, return. Now we click general view, no combined state, click OK. Enter, left click, sorry. Now we're going to go to view display, and we're going to change display style to follow environment, and then hit apply. And that means that up here, whatever we set this to is what this model will change to. So the way I usually like to make drawings is I make an isometric view if it's required, if it's a complex shape. This one's very simple. You can do this whole drawing in 2 views. Honestly, just one. You don't need a second view for the thickness. You could add a note stating, and we've made this out of standard sections of material. So you could do that. One of the things you can see here, we're using a framework part, and we've got this weird intersecting parts, and that's because the quilt here is not default to be hidden. So we need to make sure if ever that happens and we want it hidden, that we come in here and hide the quilt. So to get back to editing the part, you can double click it, or you can left click and then click the edit symbol. If I was in annotate, I still can do it. Good. All right, so I'm going to double click this. I'm going to uncheck lock view movement up here. That lets me now drag the view around wherever I'd like. But for this drawing, I'm going to go view type, change default orientation, isometric, and then I'm going to leave that up there as our ISO. You could set a manual scale for this here, custom scale. We can go 0.5. That's 1 to 2. You should always use scales referenced off a textbook like Boundy. Use a proper standard. So I'm going to click OK. Down in the bottom here, you can see we've got a scale, and that's 1 to 1. So that means for anything that doesn't have a custom scale, the scale will be 1 to 1. So we're happy with that. So now I'm going to go general view again, no combined state, left click, view display, follow environment, apply, view type. It's still on isometric, that's good. Now I'm going to try and get that front face. All right, so I've got this, and then I'm going to go angles, and I'm going to rotate it by 90 degrees. Cool. All right. Now, if I wanted to make a projection view, I would I'd left click on it, and then I would click this option here. And then you drag that to where you want the projection view. Again, I don't really require projection views for this model. So I'm not going to put that in, but that is how you would put that in. So now I want to annotate it. So I'm going to go to annotate. Now you could left click and you can click this one, which will show model annotations, and a whole bunch of things come up. And then you select either here or in the list the ones that you'd like to keep. So I'm going to keep this one, I'm going to keep the round, I'm going to keep the 15 mil, and I want the one that dimensions the hole. There we go. I'm going to hit apply, and then I'm going to close that. All right, now I've left clicked and I've got this selected, so I can now click and drag the dimension around while I'm in the while I'm in annotate, in fact any view, but you have to select it. Now if I left click, and then while I'm holding left click, I'm tapping right click, you can see it's changing the way the arrows in the center are pointing to the hole. So this just lets you pick something that is your preference for the drawing and view you're making. So I'm going to choose that one. I'm going to bring this up here actually. You can see it snaps to the middle. I can hold right click and change the way we're dimensioning it again. Got our round there. It's important when you're dimensioning things to include the information to make them and make them well with good practice. So you might be tempted in this case to dimension this hole from this edge 40 mil away. That's okay. And then you might be tempted to dimension this hole 40 mil from that edge. And what that will do is any errors in the overall length of your part produced will now affect where your holes are. So if you were making this in real life, you would dimension, if you're going to dimension the first hole from this datum edge, you would dimension the next hole from that datum edge as well. So we're going to put a dimension by selecting the dimension tool. We went to annotate, dimension, select the thing. Then we're going to hold control and select the edge, and you can see this is dimensioning the center of the hole, and that's going to put it 110 mil away from there. And that's a good dimension, because it means that when this part is made, it obviously needs to line up with something else to bolt to, and it's going to line up, assuming both parts are made to this same standard. All right. Now for this part, I would probably get away with just a note here saying plate, I like to use capitals, and drawing should always be on A3. No one wants to read a drawing on an A4 page. So plate is to be of 30 by 2 millimeter steel plate. And these drawings are going to be reviewed prior to you actually submitting them to the workshop anyway. Reviewing drawings is a really important step. You often miss a lot of simple things. And so I would use this note to explain that that plate is 2 mil thick. You could very easily just put in another view here, projected view. Go to view display, follow environment, and then you can go to grab the dimension tool and dimension that thickness. It's important to make sure that your dimensions are clear and don't obstruct anything, and they're not messy. If you've got multiple parts that are similar, dimension them in the same way, but also lay out the dimensions in the same way. It just presents a cleaner, neater view. I like to put all my notes in the bottom right hand corner. Notes are important, but you shouldn't, you probably shouldn't be needing to write a whole page worth of text. If you have, either cover this information in a separate document, or maybe your drawing doesn't have the right views and dimensions on there. Let's say we had extra information in dimensions that we wanted to include that we didn't want to put in and have them over constrain the dimension, the drawing. You can click annotations and you can go reference dimension. So for example, we put this in and you can see it comes up with the dimension, but it's in brackets. This tells the reader that it is a reference dimension. And sometimes these are just nice to put in. You don't want to have to make someone have to do maths. This leads to potential for human error. You don't want that. So we're going to just pop some of these in here. There you go. All right. I would, for making this part, I know that the round, it's not critical, so it doesn't need to be 2 mil. So I would put a note in here saying round dimension not critical. And again, you're going to discuss this with your chief engineer or your other fellow teammates to help you review this drawing. All right, now say we wanted to add something a little more complex perhaps. We'll go drawing models, add a new model. We'll go add model. Let's get one of these pipes. I'm going to click done, and we'll go to general view, no combined state, and we would add that in. Again, changing the display type. You can see we've got the quilt in there for this part, so we're going to hide that. Let's say we were happy with that now, and we wanted to dimension or reference this is part 1 and this is part 2. Just showing you the use of tools, not the best way to make a drawing for these things. So back to annotate, we'll go annotations, balloon note. We want a leader. We're happy with these default settings. We're going to click make note. We're happy with all those settings. So we're going to select part of the select an edge, and then we're going to, you see there's this little orange circle, and then we're going to just select it and then middle mouse click, and then we're going to type our note. So I'm going to type 1, and then I'm going to press enter on the next one. And then I'm going to make another one, and I'm going to click here, left click, that middle mouse click. I'll call this 2, enter, enter, hit done, return, unselect everything by just left clicking free space. And now you can see we've got a balloon note here, which we can click and drag around, and it's got the number 1 in it. And here we have another one that has the number 2. Balloon note should touch the thing they're pointing to with the arrow. And these are really useful if you're making an assembly view and you want to show multiple parts, especially when you've got a bill of materials that can reference these. And of course you can type other text into there. Another thing we can do is notes. You've seen me put an unattached note in. This is a note. That's just free text. You can select it and then click and drag and move it around. You can also do a note with a leader. So again, it's free text note with leader. You might want to use this to say weld this surface here, or weld all along this surface, or grind all this surface flush, blah blah blah. Things like that. They can be useful just to add that extra detail. If you were making an assembly drawing, or a series of drawings that are for similar parts, you might want to make them all in the one file. So to do that, you just simply add a new sheet. So you would click here, it's asking what's the material. I'm just going to put in mild steel, part 2, P2, part 2. All right, and you can see drawn by doesn't have my name, and I want to have my name. So to edit that, I just need to go to table, click in it, and then I can start editing. There we go. If you're not happy with anything in the format here, you can discuss with your SME on whoever is in charge of managing and making your formats. You can also rename these sheets. So we can double click it and we can call it, typically your first sheet will be a general assembly view. This will be detailed view part 1, or as many sheets as required. Then you would just simply go file, drawing models. Let's see, we'll go set model. Now you can see here, I've still got these parts in memory. They're already loaded. Which means if in a detailed view you want to hide some parts, when you come back to the GA, it'll still be hidden. So if you want a detailed view of the same part or assembly with some hidden geometry, it might be better to make that as a separate drawing, not as a part, not as a new sheet. But new sheets do make it easier when you've got to print lots of pages. Alright, so when we want to actually print our drawing, we will go File, Save As, hover over it, and you can see here there's Export. So we would export it. We want to export as PDF. We want to go Settings. We're happy with the quality here, and I'm happy with all pages to be printed. I'm going to change the color to monochrome. I'd prefer it to be black and white. And then we're going to go to content, and we're going to change fonts to stroke all fonts. This is really important. Sometimes if you don't tick this, you won't get the text for your notes or some of your dimensions or some of the format. It can just play up a bit. So make sure you've set stroke all fonts. All right, and then we're just going to click OK. And then we're going to click export up here, and it's going to say, where do you want to put it? I'm just going to put it in this folder. It'll make a PDF, and then your default PDF viewer may open the PDF once it's done. And then you can have a look at your drawing. It's really good to get people to review these. It's best on paper. Sometimes you just won't see errors until they're there in front of you. But review it twice if you need. Review as many times as required. Alright guys, I hope you found this tutorial useful. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions. Otherwise, have a great day.